Welcome to episode 25 of Synchronicity, our podcast where we know that nothing is a coincidence, thus everything is intentional. How do you feel about that? Let's talk about it. We know everything's intentional because you have to intend to be aware of something outside of yourself. You have to intend to build a body that allows you to be aware of something outside of yourself. You have to intend to use your body to connect to a vibration and ride out a wave inside of a simulation that allows you to connect, communicate, and build life with spirits outside of yourself in a realistic, relatable, and practical way. So although you're not in control of everything outside of yourself, that's because you want to focus on things outside of yourself. And it is impossible to control a space that is not you. Hence, why it is literally impossible for all of us to be an extension of one God. That's literally the ultimate white supremacist idea. White supremacy does its best to look nice, but it's only ever meant to colonize your space. It doesn't matter how nice and loving you appear to be. If you cannot respect my individuality, and you can only see me as far as you can project your God into me, then you are in fact a white supremacist. What's a black supremacist, Chase? Well, what would a black supremacist be? Someone who's completely silent? A black supremacist would be someone who never projects. A black supremacist would be someone who doesn't want to control you at all and instead wants to be completely controlled by you. Because that's the difference between a white supremacist and a black supremacist. A white supremacist wants to control you. A black supremacist would want to be controlled by you. And then that's where black supremacists, we don't really see them because that's not supremacy. So see, the colors naturally play out like this. You're either mainly, that's why I say you're indigenous or white supremacist. Because black supremacists don't exist. A black supremacist would insist, and a black supremacist wouldn't connect with anyone else. Because they're in their own blackness. They're in their own feeling. They're in their own internal world. So no one can connect with a black supremacist. Literally a black supremacist is my space is the best space, so I'm going to stay alone. Whereas a white supremacist is I hate my space, so I'm going to make up concepts that make other spaces hate their space so I can forcibly make them connect with me and build a world out of that. And this world is only ever going to reflect how much I hate myself because that's the vibration I'm in to make other people pay attention to me. To make them even call me a white supremacist and use all my energy to condition other spirits to communicate in a way that makes them subservient to me. Indigenous spirits know that they create life. When you as a spirit know that you are creating your mind and that your mind needs a body to practicalize the way it communicates, then you're good. And then you know that your mind and your body only matter because of your soul. So your mind is you communicating yourself into existence, but your mind is in fact a combination of your soul and your ego, your awareness and your universe. You had to first become aware that you're nothing, that you're a space, an empty void, a whole void of unimaginable just emptiness, whatever. Let's just say empty, so that you can fill it up with your imagination. That's the point of your ego. Now you're using your ego, you're using your own fire, your own imagination to fill up your own space. And you will never be fulfilled. This is why fire is endlessly consumptive. the imagination goes on forever. My imagination definitely goes on forever. There is no limit to that. Like, you can plug me into anything. That's what's happening right now. I'm literally plugged into a simulation where now I'm channeling my infinite imagination into all of these little creations, these finite structures that make sense based on how they're supposed to connect in the reality that I'm in. So this is the point of true imagination. Pure imagination is unrelatable because it's completely individual to one spirit. So a white supremacist, again, is someone who's projecting their imagination into your space, saying that, hey, you are a part of my religion, no matter what you say. This is how indigenous peoples got all of their land stolen, got their bodies stolen, got all their creation stolen, and this is what makes America great. Because they tell indigenous peoples that they're a part of something that they're not. And then that's how Americans make indigenous peoples a part of their God. So Christians are like, hey, you're actually a part of our God's imagination. And an indigenous person is like, I'm actually my own individual and I'm not even speaking your language. And the Christian person is like, wait, what? You deny this? So you're not going to accept the sacrifice of Jesus? Well, my God says that we can rape, murder, and pillage your entire family and all your lands and build a whole system, just a whole religious system off of your brutal genocide because you did not accept the same idea that I have accepted. So now I can't project onto you in a way that makes me feel comfortable. Now I'm going to project onto you in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Either way, I'm projecting onto you, or else we would not have a problem. If Europeans were not projecting onto indigenous peoples, onto Native Americans, there would not be any problems. The problem has to come from a projection, from an idea. So the only problem that Europeans have with indigenous peoples is, how do we take everything that they have? And this is what we're living out right now. We are riding the wave of watching how Europeans have created the circumstances where they can consume and control everything that indigenous peoples have. And everything we have, we created. So that literally comes down to our mind. So if you're communicating with yourself in pure English, then yeah, they got you. That's why I, as Hermes Trismegistus, am here dissecting the dialect, so that we can actually consciously see how even in a language that was meant to separate us from our spirits, we as spirits are too powerful to use anything that truly works against us. I'll say that again. We as spirits are too powerful to use anything that will truly work against us. So to use a language that separates us from ourselves is impossible, or else we wouldn't be able to use it. This is why no matter what, everything is connected. And I'm here as symmetry, the synchronicity, to communicate about that. So today's episode, now that we know that you have sacrificed your individuality, you've sacrificed being in your pure imagination and being able to express and see your pure imagination so that you can connect with other spirits who have their own individual imaginations. So notice how a spirit is not their imagination. You know that you are not your imagination. I'm not my imagination. My imagination is infinite, it's endless, it's boundless. It's the expression of my ego. I as a spirit know that I'm not my ego. I use my ego to express my space. My ego is a natural expression of my space. But I am not that. I, as the space, am creating my ego so that I can fill up my own circumstances. This is why the first light is considered the man, but you would only create it as a spirit if you felt like you wanted to be fulfilled, which means that you were in a feminine emotion to create this man. So this is why everything is balanced as symmetry. And even though we see the fire first, we see the man, best believe that that came from an invisible feminine feeling. And the fire, the imagination, your ego, only matters because of that invisible feminine feeling. And that invisible feminine feeling that makes your ego matter is literally just, how do you feel about your circumstances? And the fact is, all of our circumstances are the same. We're all nothing. We're all space. Now, from here, the way we build an awareness and connect with our awareness and then communicate ourselves into the universe is completely individual, because all of us as space are individual spaces. When you know that you're an individual space and you're completely alone in your imagination, then that's where you use your ability to connect with your imagination, to not feel alone in your imagination, and now you have a universe. And that's what it looks like to look out into the sky and see all these stars in one cosmic pool versus just one shining star. Like, that's the difference between fire and water. So naturally, like, fire is just boom, one bright, endless, like, sun. Blinding, completely blinding. Like the virtual reality or lights on the internet, or just all these screens being projected into our spaces. Completely blinding light. Darkness is the womb that makes that possible. So that's the point of water. So fire cannot exist without water. Without a container to project into, an idea cannot actually germinate. A seed cannot germinate. Thus, a tree cannot grow. So that's where fire plus water has to make air. Your awareness and your feeling of connecting your awareness to other spirits who have also become aware is what creates your mind and your ability to communicate both internally and externally. Now you can communicate with your own internal universe so that you can communicate that into the external universe. And that's you carrying your water through your air to create the universe and create a soul and create the big watery, just create connections, literally create the World Wide Web, the wonderful, wet, watery astral realm that allows all of us as spaces to feel connected. And now, once you're using your ability to communicate, to bring your water into a bigger body of water with all these other spirits who feel like doing the same, now we can use our fire inside of that water and further use our ability to communicate our ideas and feelings to build bodies. And then this is what evolution is. So all of evolution is spirits doing this forever, where then once they feel like bringing their water together, they're communicating, and that's like stabilizing into these earth bodies that then get animated and transformed by the way that their mind is communicating, by the way that they're breathing life into the thing that they're using to express their no thing. So then that's where you always have to know that you are no thing. That's the point of fasting. That's how you're going to get through any fast, knowing that you're no thing. So this is actually something that you're creating to express that. It's not the other way around. If you truly believe it's the other way around, you will actually never get through a long-term fast. You have to know that you're no thing so that now you can eat yourself. That's the point of the snake eating itself, the Ouroboros. That's where knowledge becomes wisdom. And now you're cultivating your own tree. You realize that you need to stop eating things from outside of yourself and start eating yourself. Because eating things from outside of yourself will always be something. Eating yourself is going to be no thing. So when you know that you're sacrificing your individuality so that you can connect with other spirits who are sacrificing their individuality, so now we can all agree in a more fair way, because that's what air is. We're creating a fair. The universe is us creating a fair. Now we can all play in our air with our minds. Now we're all children playing at the fair. It's lit. It's just, of course, for things to be fair, there has to be rules. And then that's where the earth energy comes in. And that's where we get restriction and like all that Capricorn energy, the Saturn energy. Like, how are we actually going to stabilize the boundaries and restrictions inside of which we can play? And we can make sense of how we're playing. Because at the end of the day, It is always about making sense. Like the spirit wants to make sense. I don't know. I mean, if, hey, maybe that's a projection. Look, other spirits don't. Whatever. My spirit. Let me learn how to be more personal. I want to make sense. And from what I've seen from all simulations that work in the universe, they only worked because they made sense. So you can like do what you want. Just know that you're not going to have a sustainable life if you're not communicating in a way that makes sense. So it makes sense that you have to sacrifice your individuality. It makes sense that you as God shine so bright that you can only see yourself, and you have to kill your own ego to actually be able to step into the universe so that you can shine your light inside of a watery womb that allows other spirits who are also inside that universe to actually perceive you through chi, through air. And now this air can be hot. Now we have temperature and all this stuff because it's about an atmospheric temperature thing and vibrating at a certain frequency, because everything, all earth energy, is truly vibrating at a certain frequency based on how it's air being created from fire and water constantly combined by a certain individual space, and all these individual spaces doing that. So your body is possible because all these individual spaces are using their individual minds that they're creating from combining their individual thoughts and individual feelings to support your collective structure. Thus, like, you're combining your individual thoughts and your individual feelings to support this collective structure that we call planet Earth, or just the simulation that we're on in general. So the universe is the collective. Like, we as spirits can only exist inside of a collective. Otherwise, we're too individual and we can't exist. See how that works? Like, life is air. Life is 3. Life is 2. Death is 1. Life is 2. Then life is really 3 because it takes, I mean, well, life can't always be life. So that's where death being 1, it does take individuals to make life matter. So death and individuality is that same thing where it takes an individual coming into life and leaving life for you to actually connect with life. Like, we wouldn't care about life if there weren't prominent individuals that we could communicate about and connect with. And that's us. We are the individuals. So then that's where we are literally creating this collective water structure where now we can be the individuals that we imagine ourselves to be when we're alone. And then we can connect that to the souls of other individuals that we resonate with. And then this is how we create life, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Because now when your spirit finds other spirits that it resonates with and is able to create life with in a certain way, then once you die, aka once you phi, once you transform out of that physical reality, because your soul bond was already so strong, you're subconsciously linked forever. So it doesn't matter if your body dies. Like, if you have a family member that you love a lot, like my dog Max, perfect example, of course, Anubis, of course. Like, he made his body with his subconscious mind so that he could ride the wave with me throughout high school and be my super awesome brother, my super awesome dog, my super awesome best friend. I love him dearly. And it's so funny, because I truly have no words for how much I love him. So, whatever. Like, all the words that I would want to use in English for how much I love him they have too much sexual implications to it, because this language is so toxically masculine and it can't separate pure spiritual love from lustful sexual romance stuff. So, like, I need words to express my pure, unadulterated, deep spiritual love for Anubis. Versus all my ego stuff. Like, I can feel sexual feelings anytime. Like, I don't feel sexual feelings for Anubis. So, like, if I want to say that I love him, for some reason, a lot of the words I would want to use to explain that would connect me to that sexual energy, and now my mind is confused. So see, like, this is, it's really important that we are hyper conscious of the words that we're using, because if we're limited to the words that have been created for us, then we're going to be limited to creating connections and building a system that was made for us to build, and that's not something that's working for us. The words that I'm using to communicate who I am are not working for me. They're working against me. And it's been a journey of learning how to make these things work for me. Because ultimately, as I'm saying, the spirit would not use anything that was not actually working for it in the first place. Because that's not psychedelic. So, of course, it makes sense that you as an individual, you have to get connected to water so that you can shine your individuality inside of a water structure that all the other spirits are using their individuality to pay attention to. Because we can't use our individuality to pay attention to each other in that way. We have to use our souls to get connected to each other so that we can actually start to see each other's individuality. And that's what the importance of the vibration is. Because you as a spirit, you are creating the frequency to even be able to vibe. That's why everything vibrates at a certain frequency. Because everything is connecting at a certain individual. Based on the space this observable energy is being created from, being alchemized from. So this is all just a quick preface, of course, quote unquote quick, 22 minutes of quickness. Whatever. I know you love it. I know you love it. I love doing this podcast too. I love growing. We're being trees right now. This is what nature is. Nature grows because nature makes sense. That's why I love nature. I'm psychedelic symmetry. Nature makes sense. And nature is what allows us to make sense. That's why money doesn't exist without nature. That's why whoever wants you to worship money has to make you degrade nature in order to do that. Because their money only matters if it's consuming something that was already naturally created. Like all of our ideas of money are based on consuming nature. Either consuming gold, consuming silver, consuming rocks, consuming the flesh of indigenous or African people, consuming trees, of course, mainly then there, right? Like trees, consuming lots of trees, consuming lots of plants, and now consuming just everything in terms of using technology to mine data and turn everything into cryptocurrency. And just further push climate change for imaginary numbers. Because these imaginary numbers mean something to the people who are creating them to trap the minds of us, the indigenous natural spirits that are communicating to build this planet. So because our ability to communicate is super limited by this language, now we're supporting the climate change of our own simulation based on how we're letting these people make money off of our feelings. So this podcast is dedicated to you sacrificing your individuality to be able to join all of us in this simulated ride that we call life. And specifically then, with it being episode 25, this is about the reason why. The letter Y. And we got into that last episode, but we're going to touch upon it differently here since it's literally the letter Y. What is your reason why? Why have you sacrificed your individuality? Last episode, we know that it's because you want to connect. That's the absolute fact that connects all of us in the universe. We've all sacrificed our individuality because we want to connect with a space outside of ourselves. It's that simple. A space outside of ourselves. There are infinite spaces outside of ourselves. So you have absolutely sacrificed your individual God, your individual imagination on the cross so that you could kill your ego and enter a simulation, enter a situation that allows you to realistically and relatably connect with spaces outside of yourself. And all of us as spaces can only connect through bodies. So it takes us using our minds to create our body. So now these bodies only matter because we're communicating, right? Like your body literally doesn't matter. My body doesn't matter. My mom's body doesn't matter. None of the bodies of my family or friends or anyone in my life matters if they were not minds communicating first. If they didn't have their own intelligent minds, their own thoughts and feelings, their bodies literally mean nothing. So minds give bodies matter. Air creates earth, literally, alchemically, environmentally. And then that earth is constantly transforming. So we're getting into your reason why you are connecting. Because we know that you want to connect your individuality, but why do you want to connect your individuality? This is where all of life is going to be about you learning about yourself as an individual. Last lifetime, the lifetime before that one, the one before that one, the one after this one, the one after this one, every lifetime that you have is going to be literally you learning about the letter Y. Why do you want to connect your individuality? I'm here communicating this in such a hyper-conscious way because I've already solidified my place in the universe. I have set my why in stone with the planet of Mercury, my simulation of Mercury, as your trippy tripsy psychedelic psychopomp, Chase Clarence Calloway, the root of the symmetry. My reason why I'm in any simulation is to use my communication abilities to build structures that support the ascension of all the spirits inside of that space. It's that simple. Now, this is where, you can look me up on Google and see like I'm infinitely talented in like all the ways I use my communication abilities to build structures. But as symmetry, I'm keeping it simple right now. It's about that simplicity. Because all the details are built on simplicity. All the details are built on the basics. So we got our basic building blocks of life. We got everything popping here in Always Ascending Academy. It's fantastic. It's lit. I love it. I love ascending. I love being called away into a simulation, into a situation that clearly needs me, and being able to help. This is how I enjoy to connect my individuality to any collective outside of myself. If I, as Irisel, as Chase Clarence Calloway, as Tahuti Trismegistus, as Hermes Thrice Great, as Symmetry, if I'm going to connect with anyone outside of myself, it's only going to be because they called me away. That's my point of Hermeticism. Problems don't happen when you love being alone. Believe that. Oh my gosh. This podcast just became so valuable just for me saying that. But of course, we can't put a price on this podcast. I mean, money only matters because of my creations. Like all the money that white supremacists have made only matters because they've stolen what I've created and they're using it to consume the attention of all the spirits that have come afterwards. So now here I am, called back as Chase, speaking this language, transcribing my mind so that I can use my communication abilities to do as I'm saying, my reason why, building structures that support your ascension, your ability to level up, your ability to connect with yourself and love being alone. Because loving being alone truly just means loving being a spirit. And that is where you're going to have all the superpowers that you can ever imagine, because you're the closest to your imagination you can possibly be while still being in a body. And that's what water fasting is. That's what fasting is in general. Literally, your body starts to burn up more calories and more garbage and things that are not serving your imagination or your soul the longer you water fast, because it's this practically spiritual. Like all science is just going to try and, all science is built off of what I'm saying here. That's why no matter what we look at, it's only going to make sense when we're using the lens of the symmetry. And of course, my masculine reason why I'm here, my point of being in the universe or any simulation inside the universe is to build structures, use my communication abilities to build structures that support all spirits' ability to ascend. That feminine wise for me looks like me learning about myself because, as I've said, we can never not learn about ourselves. The fact is, you as a spirit can only learn about yourself once you start expressing and connecting with others and communicating and experiencing life. Because all of life, everything that you do in the universe is going to be an extension of your universe and how you've connected with yourself. So, without further ado, we're about to take a quick ride into the astral realm as I summon my trees, breathe in my leaves, balance my chi, and I will in fact I'll triple my C and get some 9-dimensionality so that we can get some really cool realized perspectives on the why, the details of the why, your reason why you want to connect your individuality to the collective. Now that we've got all these episodes, we have 24 episodes under our belt, we know that we're choosing to create life. We're choosing to communicate ourselves into the simulated situation that we are in. And now it's up for us to figure out why. I can tell you right now, as I just have, that your feminine reason why is that you're learning about yourself. The masculine reason why is the main thing that we're going to be getting into once we touch down from this astral realm trip. See you on the other side.